So we're into July, and that signals the first change in the beekeeping season. So far, everything up to this point in the season has been easy, and from now on in, things start getting really difficult. In this video, I'm going to explain my top tips for beekeeping in July, what we'll be doing in the apiary, and the things to look out for in the coming months. If we haven't met yet, I'm Charlie from Jurassic Bees. We make nucleus colonies and raise queen bees right here on the Jurassic coast in Dorset. Hello everyone and welcome back. Firstly, I have to make an apology. I set out this season to do these tips every month, and for the last 2 months I just haven't had time to do them, and there's good reason for that. And the reason is a good one though. We've had a new arrival into the family. I've become a dad, my first daughter, and things just had to give. We had to get the nukes out to customers, we had to get our queens grafted and the queens reared, get them mated, and we just didn't have time to do the video. So my apologies, but thankfully things are settling down, everything's really good at home, so with any luck we'll crack on and we'll finish off the season and get these videos done. And to be honest with you, this is the right time of year. Now we've gone past the summer equinox, things really start getting difficult now. So before we get into the tips, let's just take a look at what's happening here in Dorset. So like many parts in the country, it's been heat wave, heat wave, heat wave, and absolutely very little rain. When we look around, the bramble has nearly gone over, the heather's almost out in bloom, and the clover's coming to an end. We've gone past the solstice and the day lengths are starting to shorten, and all of those things start compounding and really make life difficult for the bees. Although all of those lovely heat waves have been great for us, for the plants, the fact we've had very little rain makes life very difficult for the plants. Most of the plants that we rely on for our summer nectar flows are shallow rooted, and the shortage of rain just means that they're drying up, and that really will compress the season. The summer nectar flow will come to an end much sooner than normal. In some of our apiaries, we're already seeing that happening, and that poses some difficulties for the bees. Of course, every part of the country is different, so it's really important for you to keep an eye on the environment, monitor the forage, and really understand what's happening in your area. But one thing that's true almost everywhere is the easy part of the season is over. These are the reasons why it's going to be difficult, and these are the tips that I'll give you to help manage your colonies and really get them ready for the upcoming end of the summer. Number 1, change of mindset. So up to now the focus has been simple. Growing colonies, managing space, rearing queens, it's all been easy. The bees have been flat out, go, 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 and the plants have been yielding nectar and life has been simple. But from now on in, the questions start to become very different. We need to start looking ahead and looking towards winter. The questions that we need to be asking have gone from, has this queen got enough space, to is this queen strong enough to warrant going into winter, and will she make it through the winter and carry that colony out into the spring? We need to be asking, will this colony be strong enough to make a productive colony in the spring? We need to be checking for disease. The last thing we want to be doing is having disease colonies going through winter. And we need to be asking whether they actually deserve to be going into winter. There's nothing worse than taking a weak colony through winter and coming out the other end and they've simply died out. Now, it sounds very harsh, but you know what? It's survival. But experienced beekeepers don't chase losses into the autumn. It's a disaster. We can make changes now that can fix that, but as we start moving through August, things become increasingly difficult. So the questions you need to ask yourself: is your queen strong enough? Are your colonies up to strength? Do you have the right number of colonies that you want to go into winter? Now, you can make splits really through August and September and October, but queens are going to become very difficult to get hold of, and you really need time to let those colonies build out and expand into whatever box you're going to be taking them through winter. So we're going to be making our last splits over the next few weeks, and that gives us time to get the queens introduced, assess those queens and check they're going to be strong enough to go into winter, and really get that colony up to strength before September. And all that whilst we've got other pressures coming in from wasps and other predators which are going to start hassling the colonies. Tip number 2, watch for robbing. Now, We're already starting to see this, and you'll start to see it progressing much more as we go through in July and into August. Certainly into September, it's going to be a repeat of last year. It's going to be Wasp Armageddon. As nectar starts to become scarce, colonies start to become more defensive, protecting the honey that they've already gathered. So first off, you might start to see a change in your colony's behaviour. That's perfectly normal as you enter into a dearth. But the other problems that can arise are robbing. Now, that usually means robbing starts to become a real problem. We've already started to see it in a few of our colonies. The weak colonies are usually the first to be victims, but many robbing events are caused by us. So you could spill some honey, spill some nectar, spill some syrup, and before you know it, there's bees everywhere on that spillage. So you have to be really careful as you move forward for the couple of months, to be super careful when you're moving honey or moving frames around. And you'll start to notice that when you're doing inspections, you'll start to attract the attention from other colonies. So it's really important to try and keep your colonies short and sweet, and do what you need to do and close them back up. As we move through the next couple of weeks into August, you'll start seeing robbing becoming more prevalent. So if you haven't noticed robbing yet, if this is your first season, the things to look out for are bees which are flying around the back of the box. Maybe they're on the sides of the box, fighting at the entrance. They're all really strong signs that robbing is taking place. Normally you'll see bees coming and going in straight lines, flying with purpose. They know where the entrance is. But if you start seeing bees which are going around the back of the box or trying to find other ways in, they're robber bees. Other problems you can encounter when you do your inspections and you lift out your supers and you come to close it back up, you have to make sure that all of the boxes are aligned perfectly and there are no little gaps. If you leave any gaps this time of year, the robbers and the wasps will find their way into those. So be organised, be efficient, try and keep things nice and clean. And if you do start noticing robbing, the best thing you can do is to reduce the entrances down to one bee space so that the bees can really defend their colony. Tip number 3, wasps. Now I've already mentioned this, but wasps are going to be a huge problem. They were a huge problem last year, but this year is pretty much a repeat of that. So around this time of year, you'll start noticing a change in the wasp behaviour. Earlier in the season, wasps are out gathering protein, and they take that protein back to feed the larvae, feed the queen. The larvae that the queen produces a sweet carbohydrate-based substance, which then feeds those worker bees. Now, once that queen goes off laying, she builds out her queen wasps. Those go off and fly out and head out and find homes for hibernation. Then those wasps are left with no carbohydrates. And that's when they start turning into sugary, sweet substances that you'll find around your picnics, and you'll find them hassling beehives. Now, strong colonies will normally cope very well with any wasp pressure. So the easy way to guard against wasps is to maintain nice strong colonies like this. But sometimes that's just not possible. If pressure becomes high, the only thing you can really do is to make life difficult for the bees to gain access to the colonies. Underfloor entrances work really well. The wasps fly under the entrance and they can't work out how to get back up, but that's not for everyone. You can reduce the entrance down to one bee space just to make life difficult for the wasps to go in. The guard bees can really defend the wasps entering. You see other entrances. You can see like plastic conduit which is placed along the front. It's really just there to confuse the wasps, and again it makes life difficult for them to get in. They've got to like traverse along a narrow passageway, so the bees can really defend against that. And then there's traps. Now the jury's out on trapping. If you're going to be trapping wasps to knock down the numbers, you have to make sure it's a high efficiency trap. The last thing you want is wasps to go in, find a nice substance that they're attracted to, be able to make their way back out and go and tell the rest of the colony that in your apiary is some prime sweet stuff. If ever I am putting out traps, I like to take a 1 litre bottle, cut off the top, turn it around to make a funnel, and then I'll put jam inside the bottom of it, and that's actually quite a good efficient trap. Jam doesn't attract honeybees. Do not use honey because you'll just be trapping your own bees. Tip number 4, queen assessment. Now, we're starting to get to the end of the year, so now is the time to assess your queens. It's really important not to be sentimental towards your old favourite queens. You have to remember that if that queen's been through a couple of seasons and she's done that spring build-up and you've done a really good job of keeping her in the box, that at some point she has a finite amount of semen and she will start to run out of semen. Now, if you take a weak queen into winter, then that is a #1 cause for losing colonies before they come out of spring and before they really get time to get built up and make a colony that you can use in the summer. So look at the facts. What is the brood pattern like? What is the temperament like, and how have they been over the summer? When you're looking at the brood pattern, you want to see a nice solid brood pattern. If you're starting to see pepper pot brood, so loads of cells that are missing that looks like the queen hasn't laid in, that's a really good sign that that queen is starting to come to the end of her useful life. You need to be checking that there's not too much drone brood. If you're seeing drone brood peppered around the middle of the frames, again, that's a red flag for me. That's a really good sign that that queen probably needs to be replaced. Now, if you decide you do need to replace the queen, then you have to do it now. It's starting to become late to start raising queens. We've just finished our last round of grafts. You just have to remember that if you're going to try and mate your own queen, it takes 16 days for a queen cell to emerge. It takes another week for that queen to become sexually mature, and then another 2 weeks until she really starts to lay. So you're really looking at 5 to 6 week minimum period where there's no brood going on inside the colony. And if that time's a period of bad weather, then that colony is really in trouble. The other problem you'll start to notice is drones will become less. As the nectar flow reduces, the amount of drones that the colonies raise really starts to reduce, and that makes getting decent matings hard. When we're raising queens, we really like to work with the colonies and do what they're doing. So that's why we end up raising our queens in May, June and July. Once we get into August, as that swarming impulse starts to reduce, the colonies naturally aren't going out and swarming as much as they are in the peak season. And that tells you everything you really need to know. It's not the ideal time to raise a queen. Once we get into the later parts of August, queens become really scarce to get hold of in the UK. So now is really the time to start considering your options with your queens. Tip number 5, preparing for honey harvest. Now, if you've had a good year, hopefully you've got some honey on board. Now's the time to start thinking about how you're going to extract it, where you're going to extract it, and getting yourself ready. Remember, you're going to need an extractor, you're going to need sieves, you're going to need buckets, you're going to need jars, and all of those things just need preparing. Again, it's going to be too late if you wait until the time when you decide you have to take it off to start going out and finding those things, because I can guarantee you every beekeeper in the country will be doing the same things. Things like buckets and jars will all of a sudden become high demand and long lead times, and sometimes you just need to get the honey off when you need to get it off. Other things to consider is how are you going to clear the bees from the supers? Are you going to use clearer boards? Are you just going to shake the bees out? Are you going to blow them out? All things you need to have prepared in mind before you do it. And then you need to consider what you're going to do with the supers once you've extracted the honey. Are you going to put them back on and let the bees clean them out? Or are you going to store your supers over winter wet? Personally, I like to store them over winter wet. It helps reduce the wax moth a little bit, but the main thing is with wet supers, you can put them on in the spring and it really helps give those bees a nice dose of rocket fuel to get them going right when there's very little nectar flow coming in. Tip number 6, Varroa and disease. Now is a really good time to monitor for Varroa to see if you need to do treatments. We really like to do our treatments in early August once the supers are off. And so now's the time to be checking whether your mites are high. Really, the only realistic scientific way of checking your mite levels are using alcohol washes or Varroa washes using fairy liquid. Unfortunately, it does kill a couple of bees, but it's the only way that you can reliably get an accurate indication of the mite infestation levels of your bees. And so on that, it's really important to get your Varroa treatments done earlier in the season. We like to do them middle of August, so it gives a nice long period to knock those mites down and a couple of brood cycles before the winter bees emerge, and they emerge into a nice clean environment where the virus levels are low. Tip number 7, have an eye on next year. So right now is a really important time to consider how you want to overwinter a colony and how you want them to come out in the spring next year. Do you want them on single brood? Do you want them on double brood? Do you want them on brood and a half? Now's the time to start giving that some thought, because once we start getting into August, that's when we recommend that you start your winter preparations. And by that point, it starts to become really too late if you want the colony to start drawing out more comb, to go into winter on double brood. So just give it some thought, be prepared, get your equipment ready, because it's not going to be long now before the season ends. Tip number 9, keep monitoring for swarm activity. Once you pass the summer solstice, it really starts to ease off on the swarming pressure, but that doesn't mean it goes away entirely. Those day lengths, as they start shortening, really signal to the queen to start slowing down and for the bees to start preparing for winter. But still, we've got a lot of bees in the colony, and all of that brood which has been laid up already still has to emerge. So keep monitoring, keep adding supers, and just monitor it weekly. At the moment, we still do weekly inspections. Once we get into August, then we really start easing off. But right now, we're not quite in peak swarm season, but we're not quite out of the woods yet. And one final tip for you. If you've got any old manky comb, now is the time to change it. Again, we can use this time of year to really give the bees everything they want going through winter, and nice clean comb is one of those things. This time of year, where the bees have started reducing the amount of drone brood they're rearing, you get lovely worker brood built out on your foundation. So now's a really good time of season to be doing it. There's still a nectar flow coming in, so the bees can easily make comb. You've still got nice young bees in the colony. So if you've got old comb, start rotating them out. Give your bees nice fresh comb, ready to go into winter, and that works wonders. It's one of those things that you can do now, but once you start getting into August and September, you can still do it, but it just costs the bees more energy, more resources, and it just starts making those bees having to work that little bit harder. Right now, the bees are on a flow. They want to draw wax. They've got nectar coming in, so use that to your advantage and help benefit the bees with nice, clean, fresh wax going into winter. Honestly, your bees will thank you for it. Bees love nothing more than nice, clean wax. They hate dirty old comb. So there's my final tip. For us, August really marks the start of the new season. People often think that next season starts in April. It doesn't, it starts in August. The position you get your colonies to in August, going into September, really makes a huge difference to getting them through winter successfully and into next season. Now, the BBKA report every year an average winter losses of 30%. Last year, 50–60%, but there's just no need for them to be that high. So I get to speak with hundreds of beekeepers early in the season who have lost their colonies. And I always ask them, well, what happened? How did they go into winter? What did you do? And there's a few key things that I think people do wrong. We never exceed 10%, and we're right here on Dorset, right on the Jurassic coast. We had all the damp, all the wet, everything that the winter could throw at us, and we came through with 5% winter losses. So on the first Friday in August, I'll be releasing our winter preparation special. I'll take you through our entire system on how we prepare our bees for winter and how we really achieve those excellent overwinter successes of less than 10%. There's absolutely no reason why you should be one of those who are losing 30 to 50% of your colonies over winter. It's quite simple. There's science behind it. We just work with the bees, we give them what they want, and I'll be sharing all those tips with you. So if you want to give your bees the very best chance of getting through winter and coming out into spring, a nice booming healthy colony, you won't want to miss it. So there's my tips for July. I hope your season's been excellent so far. I hope your queens have been mated, your colonies have been well behaved, and the honey is in the supers. So if you enjoyed today's video, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.